And if you'll go ahead and star this folder in your Google Drive.
Audrey?
Yes.
Where's the bit.ly code? I can't find it. It was on and then it's gone.
Let's see. I'm gonna go back over here. Should be presenting.
Okay, it's presenting, but there's an R up, but I have it
okay.
in the chat. So
okay.
You want us to store that in our...
Right, if you'll go ahead and star it. Mm-hmm.
I have
School.
Matt, it's 10 o'clock, so if you're ready to go. Okay. So as you are coming in, if you will, go ahead and access the bit.ly that you see displayed on your screen. This will give you access to several different file folders, and you can go ahead and star this in your Google Drive if you want to add it to your starred materials. We're going to be using these resources today and talking a little bit about them. So I'm going to give everyone a couple of minutes. It often seems whenever I have Google Meet up and I'm trying to work in Google itself, that things just tend to run a little bit more slowly. So as you are accessing this folder, the Kentucky Department of Education has released new composition rubrics for the 3 modes of writing for the Kentucky academic standards. So we're going to be talking about these today. We're going to talk about best practice of use of rubrics. And then also, I've spent the past couple of days putting this in format so that you can upload it into Google Classroom. So the last portion of today's session, we're going to talk about how you can upload these rubrics in Google Classroom and use them that way. So if people come in and they're asking for the bit.ly, if you will so kindly copy and paste that into the chat box for them. If someone's asking for it, I can't see my chat box at the same time. So if you'll be a friendly neighbor and help your colleagues out, I would appreciate it. So first of all, I'm trying to make this interactive. So I want to know who's here with us today. So you have a couple of options for responding to this poll. You can take out your cell phone and scan the QR code, and it will allow you to answer this poll. Or you can simply go to slido.com and type in our meeting code, which is 5503, and just let us know who is with us today. That will let me know how to customize some of our examples and responses. Thank you all. This is a free Google Slide add-on that you can use in your class. As you can see in the upper right-hand corner, I can see how many responses I have.
Audrey, I'm just going to tell you, I'm struggling.
Yeah, that's okay.
Mr. Brooks is being very, very unfair and unkind to me because he's laughing. So give me just a few minutes, if you will.
Yes, ma'am.
Say ugly things about Mr. Brooks among yourself, please.
And while you all are responding, Matt, do I need to go ahead and hit the record button on this, or is it recording already? Thank you. So if you missed something today, want to hear what a tool is, there will be a recording available, and I'm going to put it in the slide deck. So when you access that bit.ly at the very beginning, then you have access to my slide deck for today, and it's in that master folder, and you'll be able to see it down at the bottom. And I'll show you how everything's organized in a little bit, but you have access to everything. Okay, so middle school, about 46%, high school, 29%. We have some other people with us today, curriculum coordinators, school leaders. Okay, so 28 responses so far. Okay, well, thank you for joining us. We're going to go ahead and start digging in. So first of all, our success criteria for today. By the time we get finished, I want you to know where to locate the composition rubrics in case you need those for instruction. Then other things are understanding how to use rubrics before, during, and after the writing process. We're also going to talk about the conferring guides that are put out by the department and how we can use those during the writing process. And then lastly, we're going to talk about how to use these rubrics in Google Classroom for effective virtual instruction or even whenever you're back face to face. So again, that bit.ly, one more time, is up here on the screen. Take a picture of it, bookmark it, star it, and then also where the documents were pulled from is pulled from KY Standards. So you'll have that link as well in case you need it. So the first thing we want to talk about is students can't hit a target they don't know or they don't understand. So that's where sharing success criteria, and in this case, in the form of a rubric, is super important for our students. They have to know the target they're aiming for, and then we also have to work to help them understand what those words in the rubric mean. Because we know many times they come in the form of the standards or the language that teachers use. And so we have to put it in words that they can understand. So I have another poll for you. So let's take a moment. Think back, how many of you have ever been given a writing assignment without a rubric? So you have a couple of answer choices here. Yes, no, and maybe it was more of like a formatting guide, which was about 12-point Times New Roman, 1-inch margins, word count. Okay, so it's very frustrating when you have a writing assignment and you're not quite sure what's going to make it successful and what it is that you're supposed to do in this writing assignment. It's kind of vague. So we want to make sure that we help make this crystal clear for our students. Again, they can hit a target that they know and that they understand. But if they don't, then, you know, not much luck of them hitting that target. So this is where we want to talk about our learning intentions and our success criteria. So that rubric really encapsulates the success criteria when we're looking at that proficient column. But we've got to track that back and look at our standards. So you'll find a link on this slide to our Kentucky Academic Standards, because the learning intentions come from your standards. And students have to be able to answer these 3 questions. What am I learning today? And that's not what am I doing, what activity am I engaging in, but what's the learning that I'm engaged in today? Why am I learning this? And then how will I know that I learned it? So the instruction must match the success criteria. And we also have to make sure that we're not just assigning writing, but we're teaching it throughout the process. So let's take a look and see what this looks like in practice. So here's a sample from the released Grade 8 Kentucky Academic Standards Informative and Explanatory Rubric. And we're going to look at this proficient column, and we're going to dig into the support section. So the support section at the proficient level says that students will accurately and effectively use sources to examine a topic, convey ideas, concepts, and information through the selection, organization, and analysis of relevant content. And then they're also going to effectively cite evidence by quoting, paraphrasing facts, definitions, concrete details, quotations, or other information and examples. So one thing that we could do with the students is to start unpacking this language, and we can deconstruct it and make a list of what are the skills we need to learn if we're going to have to demonstrate this in our writing. And so when you unpack it and start listing those skills with your students, you're essentially making a list of the learning intentions that the students will need to go through. So key thing here, share the rubric with the student up front, and then also Help them understand the language of it and unpack it. This one is pretty dense, so I probably wouldn't do it all at one time. I would probably take one of the scoring elements at a time and unpack it with the students and work through it. So after you've unpacked the rubric with the students, you've helped them understand the language, you've made a list perhaps of some of the skills you need to learn, and then also those are your learning intentions. One way to get the students involved is to have them look at those list of skills. And this is called task difficulty estimation. Make a list of those skills from the rubric that you think are going to be the most difficult to learn. And this is the students doing this. So they're going to take that language of the success criteria and rank order it. 1 being the most difficult. I think this is going to be super hard to learn, down to, and then they could label each one. Maybe they think 5 is still hard, but I think I can do it. So they're going to rank order the 5 different skills that they think are going to be the most, the hardest to learn, and then why they need support in learning how to do those. So when we talk about having assessment capable learners, getting students involved in the learning and assessment process, this is going to be key. It also helps us in that they understand the target that they're going to be aiming towards. It also serves as a pre-assessment for you, where you can see where they think they're going to need the most support, and also let you know about their level of confidence as a writer. So in the slides, you have a link to this template, and you can copy it, adjust it, and use it to fit your needs. Another way to help students understand the rubric is through modeling. So what does this look like for students? So I'm going to show you a sample video of a teacher that has written a piece and is modeling for the students where his criteria for success is located in the piece of writing.
At the bat, ladies and gentlemen, you see my first sentence. This opening sentence introduces one of the main ideas of the essay. Authors and artists communicate to people the need for human compassion or empathy to inspire action or change. This signals to the reader that the rest of the essay will address the ways in which authors and artists do just that. This statement also acts as a hook. It is the kind of statement that readers might strongly agree or disagree with, prompting them to read further. Some other notable hooks.
So the teacher has gone through a piece of writing and modeled where he found evidence of the success criteria in that writing. This is something that you could do with your students as well. You could locate sample writing pieces and take that rubric and apply it, model for them where you find evidence or don't find evidence. You could also have them work in partners to analyze a piece of writing after you've modeled it and identify that evidence or lack of evidence, because ultimately you want them to be able to apply the same skill to their own writing. Again, an assessment capable learner who knows the target and can identify when he or she has met it or has not. So being crystal clear about those learning intentions and success criteria, that they're interrelated, that the students know what they're learning today, why they're learning it, and how they will know they learned it. These are often referred to as the student's learning bill of rights. So they are entitled to be able to know and to be able to answer these 3 questions. So using the rubrics before, sharing that success criteria with them, having them apply it during the writing process, and then also being able to reflect on their results after writing to set goals for future writing pieces. So now let's talk about the conferring guides that are also located within the folder. So you'll find these at each grade level, and they have these 3 questions on the sheet. Where am I going? Which is your success criteria. Where am I now? So this is evidence from the current writing that they are engaged in. And then how am I going to get there? So how are they going to get to that next level of performance? What is it they need to learn, or what is it they need to do in their writing in order to move to that next level? Again, I wouldn't apply all of the scoring elements at one time. That could be quite overwhelming to students. So start with 1 or 2 and then begin to add on and layer them either throughout the year or throughout the writing process with that piece. Another way that you can do this is to pull out the proficient criteria from the rubric and use it in a single point rubric. I know many of our teachers are familiar with this process. So there's also a sample, a template in the folder for you to use. So for example, I could pull the success criteria about sourcing and place it in the middle of the rubric. And when we watched that video and we saw the teacher going through and highlighting evidence, I can ask the students to do that same thing. This time I have it in green. So I might have the students highlight in their work in lime green of where they demonstrated the proficiency for sourcing. Then when they turn it into me, I'm going to look at those areas that the student thought that he or she demonstrated the skill. And then I can give them areas for growth. And I also want to point out areas of excellence. So one key thing to remember is the more we tell students to keep doing something they are doing that's correct, then they are more likely to do that. So they also need that positive reinforcement of what they're doing so that we continue to see those behaviors in their writing. And on the template that you have, consider inserting a video directions or teacher modeling there so the students understand what you are asking them to do. The other thing about using these rubrics is errors should be expected and celebrated. And they should see errors as opportunities for learning and not a negative characteristic. Feedback is going to thrive on errors. I need feedback to move forward. If I'm not making errors, I don't need your feedback. So we have to make sure that we're providing the appropriate challenge so that students need the feedback from us to continue progressing. So a little bit about the files that you have access to. So at each grade level, you will find within the file folders PDF versions. So these were downloaded from KDE. You will also find editable versions in Excel. So for example, if you only wanted to apply 2 of the scoring elements, download a copy of the Excel one and just keep the 2 scoring elements in there that you want to apply to this piece of writing. The conferring guides are also located in the folder in Word format. And then there are also importable Google Classroom rubrics. These are newly constructed, so if you see an error in them, please just email me and I'll try and fix it. But it was quite a task to get them in this specific format. So be kind with your feedback and let me know if there's any misspellings or anything in there as they were tried to transcribe from that PDF version into the Google Classroom version. Okay, so a quick check here. Learning intentions. We talked about learning intentions and success criteria. So I believe you can select multiple answers on this one if I did everything correctly. So which ones do you think you would choose to answer? Learning intentions, and what characteristics describe them? So we know that frequent, low-stake checks for understanding help promote student learning. So this little quiz right here is low stakes. There's not a grade associated with it. And just popping those in a frequent manner, it monitors student understanding and also allows for the students to be involved in the process and allows you to kind of check for misconceptions along the way. So learning intentions come from the standards. They also allow students to answer the question, what am I learning today? They guide your lesson planning. And ultimately, they should align with the success criteria at the end. So a few things to remember before we dig into the Google Classroom portion. You want to share the learning intentions and success criteria with students before, during, and after the learning process. Teach students to understand the success criteria and apply it to their own work. Provide feedback to students in bite-sized and actionable chunks. I don't know how many of you have ever gotten a paper back and you felt like there wasn't any white space on the side and felt overwhelmed. So bite-sized chunks and actionable. What can they do with it? If there's not an opportunity for them to do anything with it, then they're not going to read it, act upon it, and learn from it. So we have to make sure that there's an opportunity to do something with the feedback. Provide students with the opportunity to act on it and create a culture where errors are seen as learning opportunities and not failure or negative characteristics. So now we're going to dig into the using the rubrics in Google Classroom for effective virtual instruction. I'm going to click over here to Google Classroom. Now, whenever I was in the classroom, Brenda Bittner was my tech person, and she'd always say technology is like a circus animal. You train it, you train it, you train it, and then all of a sudden it just lays down on stage on performance night. So hopefully everything will go as planned. So I have created, I'm going to go to classwork. I have created an assignment here. And so I'm going to go up here to these three dots and I'm going to edit it. So whenever you create an assignment in Google Classroom, you can add a rubric to it. So I'm going to go over here to rubric and I'm going to import from Sheets. And let's do argue. So if I type in argumentation, I'm going to just choose, let's choose the 7th grade argumentation one. Now you will see that this rubric, you have to use the importable Google version, will automatically populate into Google Classroom for you. And you will also notice that there's a space for a criterion description. So we do not have these from KDE. What I would recommend you do is as you are unpacking the rubric with your students, then I would come up with a class description of that criterion. So clarity and coherence, as we unpack it and look at those different performance levels, how are we as a class going to remember what that means? That's what I would type in here as the description of what will be assessed. And yes, Ms. Harwood, it does always have to be in Google Sheets to import it. You can also take out different ones if you don't want to use them here. And the points are here, but you can change those as well. And I believe it's going to need me to put it in descending order. But this is the rubric straight from the Department for Composition. And then I can save this rubric there. And now the rubric is attached to the assignment. If you want to create your own rubrics, then there are templates for other assignments, and those are in the Google Classroom rubric templates. And we could talk about that another day. But if you want to import these, I'm going to click into these folders, then you will need to use the versions that are in the importable Google Classroom rubrics, because it has to follow a certain formula, or else it will not populate into Google Classroom. But all the work has been done for you for 6 through 12. They have not released all of the ones K through 5 yet. So let's go back here. I have this, it's on the assignment, the rubric is now. And I have one that is turned in. I'm going to go to the assignment. And you can see that I have the rubric over here on the right-hand side. It automatically pops up. This is just a Newsella article that's in there. I can open up the rubric so that I can see it over here if I want to pop it out. And I also want to make sure that I'm providing comments to the student. So if you haven't used the comment bank, I would recommend using it. And then I would also recommend using the language of the standards, because then you can add these to the student work. So for example, this one says, excellent attention to detail. You address all the demands of the prompt. That language addressing the demands of the prompt comes directly out of the rubric. So then I could come over here and I could highlight. I'm going to hit add a comment. If I want to search the comment bank, I'm going to start with hashtag, and it's going to allow me to then search through comments that are in the comment bank. Or I can simply begin to type topic. There we go. You effectively introduce a topic, and I can add that comment there. If I want to do grading, then I can enter the points on the grading over here as well. And to add a comment to the comment bank, you just simply click add to bank, and then I can use the language of the rubric and type your comment here. And then I can delete if I don't like that comment. So now that I have that, I could go in and assign a grade to it. Let's say I've reviewed it. And if I am using points, then I can go over here and enter the points, say 2, 4, 4. And then if I wanted to list any private comments, so I could tell the student, you have comments on your submission, please check them for needed revisions. And I could type the private comment here to the student. And post it, and I will go ahead and return this submission to the student. And I would like to go ahead and return. So that is a quick overview of how to use those Google Classroom rubrics. It is recorded if you need to go back and see those individual steps. So as we are having students working, it's going to be critical that we have them involved in writing, also understanding the language of the rubrics, and being able to engage and receive that formative feedback along the way, before just applying the rubric at the end. So that's going to be critical. How are they applying those criteria throughout the writing process? So I'm going to check our chat box, see what questions. I will send out a link to the recording. Okay. And Slido, I know, is a slides add-on. Okay. So what other questions might you have about using the rubrics, using them in Google Classroom? Okay. Thank you, Matt. It will be on the WCPS YouTube page. The other thing I've included, you can use this with the writing rubrics. You can use this with any project that you're going to be using a rubric for. If you're familiar with the single point rubric, then I saw a place to insert a video. Yes. So here is a sample template. And I would go to slide and edit master. So I put some things on the canvas, which is what's located on the left and right hand side of the slide, so that students couldn't mess with those or move them around. So I'm going to go to edit master. I can put my directions over here. You can customize it with a Bitmoji, something else. I can also insert video directions or teacher modeling over here for the students. But I put that pro tip up there, edit them. So go to slide, edit master, customize your directions, and then leave your success criteria here in the center. But that's one way. Have them highlight the evidence. That's why I color coded it. Highlight that evidence in their work before they submit it to you. You can also teach them how to do this in peer revision process. So how do I try and find the evidence in my peers' work and share it with them? And then here's the task difficulty estimation. What are the 5 skills they think they're going to need the most help on and why? For students who might not be able to type as well. One thing is you can always go to, since this is in slides, you can go to tools and you can do voice type speaker notes. They can record their response and then they can simply copy and paste it up there in the text box. So that's one of the benefits of having it in slides is they can do the voice type speaker notes and then copy and paste their response up in the corresponding box. And lastly, just how the folder is laid out. So you'll see kindergarten all the way through 11th and 12th grade. We don't have K through 5 built yet. All of those are not released. You will also see the overview slides from today. You'll see the single point rubric template, the task difficulty estimation, and then here are Google Classroom rubric templates. So if you teach in another course or you want to share this with your colleague, then what you would want to do is you'd want to go in here and do a forced copy of the template. Notice I have clarity and coherence because that's what it's called in argumentation. But this is where your scoring element name will go, your description, and then you'll need to type in the description of this performance level. So I would not change anything that is in a colored box on this template in terms of like you can click it and type in it, but do not move it or anything else. Thank you, Nan. My husband actually helped me this weekend because it was kind of tedious. So he helped out as well so that we could have them all ready to go for today. So here is a template if you need to use it for another assignment. If you needed to add another row, then you're just going to copy those, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows, and then paste them underneath. You can also delete ones you don't need, but this is the structure that it needs to be in for Google Classroom to read it correctly. So you could share this with your social studies friends, your science friends, show them how to create their own rubrics and use this template to upload them. Okay, so I'm going to stay on if there's any other questions. Matt, if you want to shut down the YouTube casting, but I'll stay on the Google Meet in case people have questions. And Ms. Ford, I'm going to put a link to the presentation, to the YouTube in the presentation as well. So in those overview slides. Okay. Thank you for joining.